Dave Edmunds is a Welsh rock and roller. He is a singer, guitarist, songwriter and producer. He had some success with singles under his solo name in the 70s. But before that, he started off in the 60s in lots of gigging bands, initially gigging around South Wales and then moving to London and the pub scene there. He had a solo success in 1970 with I Hear You Knocking, which is one of his biggest hits. He had several other hits through the 70s. And had this strange relationship in the 70s with another singer called Nick Lowe, who I've done a review of before. So they were together effectively with a few other people in a band called Rockpile, but they had individual recording contracts with different labels, so they couldn't release albums as Rockpile. So they effectively released albums under the solo names. So some albums that are Dave Edmunds albums are effectively Rockpile albums. Some albums that are Nick Lowe albums are effectively Rockpile albums. Okay. Then in 1980, they managed to get themselves onto the same label and released an album called Rockpile, but then split up. His solo career carried on somewhat into the 80s, tapering off towards the end and into the 90s, and he's not particularly active now. Hi, my name's Dan. So this was the 5th studio album by Dave Edmunds, but it's not really a solo album. This situation's slightly complicated. He was in a band called Rockpile, which was himself, Nick Lowe, who's also pretty well known, Billy Bremner, who always confuses me because in my youth Billy Bremner was a footballer at Leeds United, and a guy called Terry Williams. But because both Dave Edmunds and Nick Lowe had separate solo recording contracts, they had to record as either one or the other, and they tended to use the same band still and then just do it as a band but then release it under one of their names. And in fact this was released kind of at the same time as a Nick Lowe album that I have previously reviewed. So I describe this as being pop rock with an emphasis on rock and roll and rockabilly. Now, if you were to push me what the exact difference is between rock and roll and rockabilly, I think I'd probably flounder a bit, but would probably say that rock and roll is more like Chuck Berry and rockabilly is more like Elvis Presley. And amongst this, there's a couple of more heavy rock tracks in there. The most well-known tracks are Girls Talk and Queen of Hearts. And Girls Talk was written by Elvis Costello. Queen of Hearts by a guy called Hank DeVito, so he's not a name that I particularly know. But there are several other tracks here. Other tracks that have been written or were previously recorded by people that I do know or have heard of. So Crawling from the Wreckage was Graham Parker of Graham Parker and the Rumour. Dynamite was not written by them, but was previously recorded by Cliff Richard and the Shadows. Take Me for a Little While as recorded by several people before this, including Dusty Springfield. Bad is Bad was written by Huey Lewis, but he didn't actually release a version of it until a few years later. And there are 3 tracks here that Billy Bremner was involved in writing, none that have writing credits for Dave Edmunds or Nick Lowe or, as far as I remember, Terry Williams. Okay, so the oddest track on here definitely is Creature from the Black Lagoon, which is by Bremner. And it's about this monstrous creature coming into a town or a village in the middle of the night and carrying away women. Quite an odd song. In terms of the songs that I like, well, I like that. In fact, I like most of them. I definitely like Queen of Hearts. I feel mixed feelings about Girls Talk because I like it in principle, but sometimes in practice I find it just a bit repetitive in the lines. Overall, I found it to be a pleasant album. There's some solid songs. There's a couple that I know. It's definitely not bland. It's kind of, it's not deep and meaningful, but it's relatively entertaining. So I quite liked it. What do you think? Please talk to me through the comments box. That's it from me for now.